What are movement snacks and how can people kind of add them throughout their day?
Think about movement snacks in terms of like mini HIIT workouts, basically. I want to rev your vascular system. I want to rev your heart rate. We as women, we settle for the least of things. Just remembering that the doctor works for you. We work for you. Remember that. Like at the end of the day, it's about your health.
There's definitely women that listen to this podcast and they're like, it's probably too late for me. What would you say to them?
It's never ever too late.
Dr. Mariza Snyder, thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited to have you.
Yay, I'm so happy to be here.
Mariza actually is officially on her book tour, or you have a spot tonight here in Austin.
Yeah.
And I reached out to her last week and it just ended up working out that she is here today. So thank you so much for taking your time out of your day.
I love your mission.
Thank you.
I love that you're inspiring women to move in a way that really impacts their longevity, their health, and just helps them to feel alive. So it is an honor to get to be here.
Oh, well, thank you so much. You're in San Diego.
I am.
And you're here in Austin this week just to launch your book. So first and foremost, tell us about this beauty sitting next to us.
Yeah, it's called The Perimenopause Revolution, and you can totally judge the book by this cover.
It is a great
so
cover.
Pretty. And the book really is about it's so much more than mitigating symptoms. It's about understanding the profound shift that happens in perimenopause, because perimenopause is a metabolic inflection point. And I think a lot of women have been told, at least I remember growing up, hearing one, that women just suffer, and two, eventually it's just going to be a decline. And there is nothing further from the truth in both of those fronts. That one, we do not need to suffer needlessly ever. And I think that there's a lot of people working very hard to ensure that women are thriving, not just surviving, not only life, but especially perimenopause. And then two, that we can be strategic about midlife and how we thrive into the second chapter of our lives. Like there are amazing tools. We can build resilience. We can build cardiometabolic health, and we can feel alive as we step into menopause and beyond. And so that's what this book is all about. It's really about how do we impact our future healthy self. And we do that in this profound transition.
I love it. Okay, let's start with first and foremost.
Yeah.
Why did you want to get into this? Why is this so important for you?
That's a great question. I love this question, particularly perimenopause or just women's health?
Let's go women's health.
Women's health, okay.
Yeah.
I will say that I believe that I serve everybody by serving women. Hard stop. I think I was put on this earth to specifically serve women.
Yeah.
And my son. Who knew I was going to have a little boy?
Yeah.
It started when I was a little girl. I had migraines, chronic migraines as a little girl. They started when I was 7 years old, and I missed out on a lot. But then when I started cycling, I started having cyclical migraines as well. So I had migraines throughout the month, and then I would have these really horrible cyclical migraines. And every neurologist, doctor, anyone under the sun that I went to when I was being treated for migraines told me that I was going to always have them, that there was nothing that I could do about them, and that I was going to be taking medication for the rest of my life. And even when I really try to advocate for the menstrual migraines, because those were the sit your butt down migraines, they had a different flavor to them. And we're talking maybe most of my migraines were a 7 out of 10. These were like a 12 out of 10. So there was something about that the dots weren't being connected. And I knew that as I moved through high school and college, that not only were women getting dismissed left and right, whether it was puberty, whether it was throughout the menstrual cycle, I saw that. I mean, back in the day, I would call it lazy medicine, because we just kept writing women off, and really, either it was bikini medicine, so it was the only thing that distinguished us between men was the areas between the bikini areas, like the boobs, the uterus, and the ovaries. Or we weren't enough, we just weren't different enough to differentiate, or we were too complicated. So either I was like, which one is it?
Yeah.
Are we too complicated, or are we just too simple? And that's what drove me crazy. And I'll never forget, I was in clinical practice when I was 30 years old, and I was struggling with so many of the same symptoms that my patients were struggling, and most of my patients were in midlife. And I remember, running labs, trying to figure out what was going on, and just there not being a through line connecting the dots between what's happening with our hormones and the symptoms that women are having to navigate. And I remember after running labs, working with another, like a colleague of mine, and basically being told that birth control was the only option for what I was struggling with. I just knew that I needed to be a part of the solution and not the problem. And so that was 15 plus years ago, close to 17 years now. And every day I have been committed to moving the conversation forward, expanding knowledge to women, because I feel like there's such a big knowledge gap in the healthcare system when it comes to women's health, that the more that we can feel educated and empowered about our own health, that we understand what's going on with our bodies, not only are we able to advocate better, but we also become the CEO of our own health. And, it's not fair that we live in a time where women are still being gaslit and dismissed, and that we're being told to just suffer and just like deal with it.
Yeah.
But it still is where we're at. And the best thing we can do is kind of claim the power for ourselves.
Do you think that is changing at all right now?
It's changing, but we're still a ways out.
Yeah.
We're really like from doctors translating what women are saying. So often our symptoms are subjective.
Yeah.
It's easy to ignore subjective symptoms. It's easy to call a woman a whiny woman, or to write her off as a constant complainer. And so that's still happening today all the time. Or just sending women home, even in the midst of a pretty serious health issue. That's just where we're at. I don't see healthcare shifting and changing for a little bit longer, although the conversations like these are happening every single day. And we absolutely have doctors, especially functional doctors or longevity doctors out there, really pleading a case for women. It's different for us to be having this conversation and it to land actual, like within the clinical practice, like in a clinical setting or a hospital setting, basically bedside.
Yeah. Okay. So why perimenopause then specifically? Because like obviously women's health could be at any age, but like perimenopause is, if you can just kind of also just explain to the audience, like when does that usually start and then why?
Yeah. My mom, she was going through perimenopause when I had entered my practice.
Okay.
And as I had mentioned, most of the women that I was taking care of, because I was mostly a predominantly migraine practice. And no surprise that we see an uptick in migraines and just neuroinflammation in perimenopause as well. And so as I looked at a lot of my patients, they were either in perimenopause or early menopause, also postmenopause, but often many of them were in their 40s and early 50s. And this is where we just see an uptick in inflammation, particularly that neuroinflammation. And, I wasn't even connecting the dots between my patients going to a cardiologist and a rheumatologist and, just being siloed into so many different directions. And the through line was that they were in this profound transition. Their hormones were shifting. And as a result, their entire body was really reorganizing. I always say that perimenopause is a reckoning in a lot of ways. Like everything is up for review, particularly our everything's shifting and changing, our health in particular. But I just wasn't seeing the through line until my mom really started to experience some pretty intense symptoms. And it was this, I got this front row seat to what she was experiencing. I watched her continue to get dismissed. I watched her go through, at least a dozen plus symptoms in perimenopause that were extremely disruptive, that were really impacting her quality of life, how she showed up at work, how she showed up in her relationships. She just felt so untethered, particularly the brain related and the kind of the mental health driven type symptoms. And she could not get the support she needed and deserved. She was kind of hiding it from me. Again, very much what I see so many women do is just, especially moms, just kind of hold it all together for their families. And they don't tell their families what they're going through. Like, we need to be stoic. That's kind of like the narrative. And but finally she came to me because she was super scared about the the really severe depression and all the mood related symptoms that she was experiencing, she felt like she lost control of herself in that. And so I ended up taking over her care, and I became her primary doctor throughout perimenopause. And it was so incredible to see her go from, struggling with sleep issues and weight issues and mood issues. I mean, all of it. Mental energy just fluttered out the gate and out the door. And I just focused all of my energy and time into my mom outside of clinic. And within about 60 days, she was a completely different person. She was she lost 20 pounds. She had more energy, but more so, she felt like she had her emotional and mental well-being back. She felt calm. She felt stable. She felt like she was like able to handle life stressors again with a lot of ease and grace. And I was like, we have to do better. And so fast forward to me being 43 years old. I had my son at 41. So I'm 2 years out postpartum, and I am feeling amazing. Like, I've got good energy. I'm working out twice a day, like a big workout and then like exercise snacks and like a little mini HIIT workout during the day. Like, I had capacity.
Yeah.
Like, I had found myself again. And this was like a 5-month runway. And then all of a sudden, it was like I had this Mack truck moment where all of a sudden I started putting on weight after, even though I was training, I was struggling with like low stress tolerance. Life felt insurmountable. I was struggling with sleep issues. Like, I had this kaleidoscope of all these symptoms. And, here I am, almost 43 and a half, about to be, I'm heading towards 44. And I'm not adding it up. It's not making sense. The math isn't mathing for me. I'm thinking I'm having a Hashimoto's flare because I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I overtrained. I overworked. I overdid because I'm an overdo. Like, it's like so many women.
2 a day is a lot.
Yes. I was overdoing, and it probably was a yes and. Like, many things were true here, right, where I had this resilience, but then hormones began to falter and began to decline. And I just it felt like the rug was just pulled from under me. And it was, I ran labs multiple times. I was like, what is going on with me?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was like, I need to start looking deeper into what's going on with my body. So I'm a big proponent of bioobservability, like tracking menstrual cycles, knowing my normals, looking at my Whoop data, my HRV, my heart rate variability, looking at my blood sugar, just taking all this data, tracking my symptoms along my menstrual cycle. And sure enough, perimenopause is a clinical diagnosis based on symptoms. Symptoms, age, and menstrual cycle changes. And I was like, check, check, check. And I was like, this is perimenopause.
Yeah.
I had rage 3 months in a row on day 22, like clockwork. And that's how I knew. I was like, what else? Yes, it could be these things too, but it's definitely perimenopause.
Okay.
Yes.
So you get to this point,
Yeah.
but you already have all this information and knowledge from working with it with your mom.
Yeah.
And so now what did you change? Like what happened then?
It was a little bit more complicated. And that's the thing about peri,
Yeah.
About any woman's lived experience through this transition. This isn't a month in time,
Of course.
or even a day in time, and it surely doesn't announce itself. Like, there's
Yeah.
no lab, there's no like one day it sends you a text message and is like, we're in perimenopause.
Yeah.
We're talking about a 4 to 10 plus year transition.
Right.
On average, women will be in it anywhere between 5 to 8 years. And so this is the long game when we think about this. And so when I finally identified that I was officially in perimenopause, this was after I had 2 back-to-back major concussions. So I was recovering from post-concussion syndrome. So while I was identifying the fact that I was in perimenopause, I was also on this massive brain healing journey. So my trajectory to healing and kind of getting a foundation for myself is going to look a little bit different. But I can tell you, even at 46 right now, that building meals to protect my brain, particularly my future brain, is a big part. So I build meals to balance blood sugar.
Okay.
I build meals to support my gut microbiome and to reduce inflammation. So that's a big part of what I think perimenopause is like, how do we protect our cellular longevity and our cellular energy. So I think that's through how we eat. Next, movement. So I remember at the time where I had hit my head back to back. Well, I didn't intentionally do that. It was just two major accidents. I was lifting the heaviest I had been lifting my entire life.
Yeah.
I was so proud of myself. And I remember as I was recovering from this journey, I was just longingly looking at my weights, just wondering when I was going to get back to them. Because I had been in the gym since I was 16 years old. And I didn't know when that day was going to be. Yeah. I was like, maybe it's 90 days out. Maybe it's 4 months out. Like, I didn't exactly know what it looked like. And maybe it wasn't the 30 pounds. Maybe I went back to 12s and 15s, you know? And so, but what I did do every day, because this particular healing journey was peppered with migraines. And so I never knew when I was going to wake up with a migraine during this brain healing journey of perimenopause. And so every day, without fail, I walked multiple times a day. So I clocked about 10,000 plus steps a day during this journey. And the thing that I walked away with in this healing journey at the start of my perimenopausal experience was that movement was so critical to healing and to regulating my nervous system and to just feeling alive. Like I was actually a woman, like just feeling alive in my body, feeling present and connected to my body. Movement was one of the biggest things I tell my women in peri. Like if you feel deregulated, moods are all over the place, weight resistance is happening, you just don't feel like yourself anymore, get outside and move.
Yeah.
You know, and then we can start talking about even more strategic ways of moving the body.
Yeah.
And so that was the start of my peri journey, was healing this big brain injury.
Okay.
And but movement being the foundational piece of all of that.
Do you feel like because you had been in the gym since you were 16, movement's just kind of in your blood and that comes a little bit more naturally to you?
Yes. Yes.
So for someone out there that maybe isn't like in the gym as long as we have been, where can they start? You know, you've mentioned walking. Like, what does that actually look like? Does it have to be 10,000 steps a day?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, when I was working on the book, I had an editor in my corner.
Yeah.
I had to get this book done in 4.5 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was writing this book literally as we were recording this. I was in chapter 3 last year at the same exact time. And there are 2 chapters dedicated to movement in this book.
Okay.
Because I was like, can I dedicate all the chapters to movement?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. And when my editor, she's 39 years old, she may even be 40 now. When she was reading the book, she was reading the first chapter is just really building your life around movement. How do we do that?
Yeah.
Even with NEAT, right? Non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Like, how do we just become more physically active, right? Because I think about the Blue Zones research and how they're not going to core power workouts, and they're not doing HIIT workouts at F45, or they're not even in the gym, trying to do RDLs or bench pressing. And so I was thinking about that. And so I was actually describing compounded movements in the book. I was describing an RDL. I was describing a Bulgarian split squat. And my editor came back to me and she's like, I need you to have more detail. She's like, I've never done any of this before, like none of it. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
It was just like, and I was so deeply appreciative of her to say, like, she's like, I'm just trying to clock 8,000 steps a day. Like, that's where I'm at in my journey. And, I'm in clinical practice. I have a concierge practice. And so majority of my women are not in the gym either. They're clocking somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 steps a day. They know that they need to move more, but they haven't, either they don't know how, or they don't have the energy, or they just feel overwhelmed with the what does that even look like?
Right.
And so the first step I recommend is I just want women to move after meals.
Yeah, I love that.
To walk after meals. And initially I just say walk up and down your block a couple of times after a meal. Or if you can't even get outside because it's the dead of winter, or your son wants to play Legos after dinner like mine does, I'm 10 air squats. Or going up and down your stairs 3 times.
Yeah.
And then if you want to up level it, go up and down your stairs with 5-pound weights, or 10-pound weights, or 15.
Or your son.
Or your son, which is that's every day for me, right? Yeah. So, or spend after dinner, be in the kitchen, really cleaning it. So like sweeping the kitchen, cleaning the countertops, where you're really building in that movement. That's usually where I have women start.
Cool.
But particularly for regulating the stress response system, supporting circadian rhythm optimization. Like if I was like, can I get multiple wins in with one thing?
Right.
It would be walking outside.
Okay.
Whether that's half a block, just, up and down that block, or a whole around that entire block. Like, start with 5 minutes and let's move up incrementally.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the way you say that. You live in one of the best cities to just
know.
walk every day.
Every single day.
But here in Austin, it gets hot in the summer. I'm like, you just got to get up and go earlier.
Even today, it's 80. I mean,
yeah,
like
it's hot. I know. I'm like, it's so hot
I looked at the
still.
weather. I was like, oh, it's 86. I don't even think we touched 80 in my little neighborhood.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, our sweet spot we're in Encinitas, California, is between 68 and 74.
Oh my gosh,
72.
that's such a small window.
It's a small window.
Yeah.
And I think the highest temperature was 78
Wow.
degrees
Okay.
this year.
So yeah, I mean, like obviously you can live in very temperate
I'm
places
very
like
blessed.
that, but then there's like I used to live in Colorado, and it's like gets cold in the
Yeah.
negatives, and it would snow, but it's like outside gives you so much more than just movement. Like as you'd mentioned, stress, mental health. Like there's so many other places,
Ancillary benefits.
exactly, that you don't really realize until you like actually get out the door, and you're like, oh yeah,
Because
okay,
I
feel so much
have
better.
walking pads.
Right.
I have a Peloton. I have a Carol bike. Do you know how much? I have 2 gyms in my house.
Yeah.
I have one in the bedroom and I have one in the garage. And then I also go, wherever, to go work out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I will tell you, nothing helps me feel better in my body
Yeah.
than being outside.
Yeah.
So we have, obviously, all of our shoes are right at the front door. We don't have shoes in the house to kind of reduce our toxic load. And I always have a pre-loaded emotional support water by the door.
Yeah.
My shoes are right there. And my door is right next to the stairs. I just head down the stairs and right out the door.
Yeah.
Because so often we'll hit a wall. I have patients of mine who 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they feel like a zombie.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't even have the mental capacity to get through the rest of this day. And it's so easy for us to go and get like a latte.
Yeah.
Or to have some chocolate or something.
Yeah.
And we're always one thought away. We're one thought away. Your brain is just looking for stimulation. Your brain is looking for a reset. Your body is looking for a reset. We're not meant to stare at screens all day long.
Right.
We're not. That's not vitality.
Yeah.
That's not how we increase our health span. How we increase our health span is we take that moment and we shift our state. We get our blood flow going. We boost our cardiometabolic health. We boost our cardiovascular health. We boost our cardio fitness. And it can just be by taking a walk around the block. It doesn't have to be a long time. It just, punctuating your day with that level of movement throughout the day is a game changer, in my opinion.
Why is it so important for women in midlife specifically?
A couple of reasons. Number one, we need mindfulness practices to feel good in our bodies and to feel regulated, to show up for the people that matter most to us. And again, one of the best ways to do that is just to be outside in nature and to be moving outside in nature and to look 5 to 10 feet in front of you. Like that way you're fully present, you're looking out, whether it's into the sky, maybe it's a sunset, maybe you're looking at, right now there's orb weavers, spiders all in my neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
I know, it's so... My son loves spiders. Okay, so so I'm looking up and I'm looking for orb weavers right now with my son. And it just takes me out of the everyday mundane, the tasks, all the deliverables that I need to do. It just allows me to daydream and just kind of go to a different place. I can imagine that it's using a different area of my brain that I hadn't been using earlier that day or like 5 minutes prior.
Yeah.
Next, balancing blood sugar. Blood sugar stability, having good blood sugar variability throughout the day is one of the best ways that we can protect our cellular energy. And then, again, protecting and supporting our muscle, our bones, our tendons. I mean, if we want to have the freedom to do what we want on our terms in our 60s, 70s, and beyond, we've got to protect our neuromusculoskeletal system.
I love that. I also know you talk about movement snacks.
I do.
And you've talked about neats, which is so important and invaluable, right? You can just be cleaning. You could walk up and down the stairs. What are movement snacks and how can people kind of add them throughout their day?
So I think about movement snacks in terms of bursts of mini hit workouts.
Okay.
Basically, I want to rev your your vascular system. I want to rev your heart rate. I want to get that your metabolic like system boosted. That's what I'm looking to do. And so we're talking about 60 seconds to 5 minutes.
Okay.
Where you are, you're pushing a bit.
Yeah.
So whether it is jump squats, jack squats, mountain climbers, push-ups, going up and down your stairs, you could be running up and down your stairs, you could be taking weights and going up and down your stairs. You really want to kind of challenge yourself. But what's nice about this, because I've burned out on 50-minute HIIT classes, even 45-minute HIIT classes, I have burned myself out on those.
Yeah.
But I don't burn out on 3 minutes. I don't burn out on 2 minutes. And so I typically, my big recommendation after a meeting, after a podcast interview, after a meal, is to do 60 jump squats.
Okay.
So I like to do 20 jump squats in a minute. And I do 3 minutes of 20 jump squats. And what's so nice about it is 3 minutes, like you're done. And you just move on to doing whatever you want to do. And what I love about jump squats is, one, it's helping you to build power and really build resilience. It's bashing your bones to some degree, right? You're putting some, and you're also building muscle to some degree as well, which I love.
Yeah. I think of that and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get sweaty in 3 minutes. Does anyone ever say that to you? They're
No.
like, no.
And maybe because I only glow.
I'm like, well, I live in Austin. It's still 80 degrees, right? I'm like, well, if I did that outside, I'd be very sweaty very fast.
That's so true. Yeah. I usually am doing it inside.
Okay.
I'm doing it outside. I'm honestly, catch me at, I'm a mom. I'm a mom to a 4-year-old. So I'm at the zoo. I'm at, I'm at all these, I'm at parks. Yeah. Usually when my son is swinging, like on the swing or he's playing at the playground, I'm doing jump squats.
You're the fit mom in the corner.
I am the mom. Yeah. So I'm always doing because I can do reverse lunges. I can do jump lunges, those type of things. And so I'm usually doing something. So you'll catch me in the wild, usually doing some type of exercise snack. I'm at the airport. I'm in the plane. I'm in the back of the plane, usually doing a quick, I call it a 60 jump squat buy-in. Yeah. Like to whatever else I'm doing.
I love that. Yeah. That's so me too. I'm like I'm always doing mobility or walking. My husband's sitting down. He's like, we're about to board. And I'm like, I got to get my steps in. We're in the airport right now.
Yeah. I mean, why not? And I think the beautiful thing about being in, I think it's a reframe of how we think about movement.
Yeah.
I've been traveling a lot. I've been popping from one airport to the next. And on travel days, if anyone watches or looks at their steps, what you'll notice, if you're not intentional, you won't track a lot of steps on your travel days. You're mostly sitting on a plane, you know? And so I'm really intentional about, even if I'm not able to walk, like I feel like there's more, I'm really interested in like where the juice is worth the squeeze. So for me, let's say like I've got my family with me. Like I'm not going to be able to run around, like go up and down the airport. Like I'm going to get more juice is going to be like doing push-ups with my son or doing squats with my son or doing some quick mountain climbers. So I can really kind of rev myself up, get it done in like 3 minutes. And then we're boarding the flight kind of a thing. So, you know, I think as a mom, it's very much getting where you fit in.
Right.
You know?
Of course.
Yeah. And make it fun. Make it playful. My son loves to do jump squats with me.
Yeah. And the more you involve your family too, the easier it becomes. And then it's just kind of a part of your identity.
Yeah.
Right?
And they're just like, oh, this is just what mom does.
Yeah. And then they grow up to do it themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you mentioned like muscle, obviously, extremely important to build muscle. Why so much so in midlife for women?
I think at any time in our lives, it's important to build muscle. But I think your audience probably knows that we begin to lose muscle anywhere between, 3 to 8%. Give or take in our 30s, and then it accelerates in our 50s by 5 to 10%. So default mode, if you're just doing default life, you are going to start to lose muscle. And before you even start to lose muscle, you lose strength. And that's an interesting concept as well. So, maybe in your 20s and your 30s, you were doing harder workouts, you were training in a different way, in a different capacity. Like you had more bandwidth and you had more strength and power. Yeah. And then as we move into our 30s and our 40s, what I see with my patients is they'll notice that they don't have the same kind of power. They don't have the same kind of strength. And as a result, they pivot or they accommodate to the fact that they're losing that.
Right.
And I think that becomes a big disservice. So I'll see a lot of my patients will move to doing half marathons and 10Ks because they're like, I can do this, or maybe they're moving more towards Pilates and yoga, that type of thing, and they're shying away from lifting weights. But this is the time where we've got to double down. Muscle, not only is it helping to protect our brain, protect our cognitive function, it's helping to reduce inflammation, it's helping to modulate our immune system, it's helping to keep our blood sugar stable, and it's really helping us to ensure that we have that freedom as our future self. Like if you want to, like I think about as a 5'2" girl, we we're talking about how I can't touch the floor on this. And I do a lot of snatches.
Okay.
I do a lot of 50-pound
love
snatches.
That. Barbell or dumbbell?
Usually dumbbell.
Nice.
Yeah. So I do, and I do it for power. I want a lot of power as a mom. What if something happens to my son? I want to be able to just like literally snatch him up.
Yeah.
But I am on a plane a lot, and because I'm short, a lot of people want to help me.
Yeah.
Take my luggage down, and I'm always like, I always say, I train for this.
Yeah.
Like I train, and I snatch that in a very controlled manner, and I just bring it down.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love to snatch my own luggage, and so that's power, and that's strength. That's both.
Right.
And as we move into midlife, we are losing both more quickly, more like faster than we think.
Yeah.
And so, even just to maintain the muscle that we have, to maintain the power that we have to train.
Right.
But if you actually want to build both, you have to be very strategic and very intentional. But if you want to be able to get off the floor with your grandchildren, or to to pull your luggage off the overhead compartment, or to just get your butt out of a car, like after the age of 65, this is the window of opportunity to do so. Like we're not just training for today. We're training for our 60-year-old self. We're training for our 70-year-old self. My mom is 65 years old. She's flying back from Australia today, where she did a bunch of hiking, and she was doing the damn thing.
Yeah.
And she's training for a marathon right now.
Wow.
She trains in the gym. She actually wants to start more bodybuilding once she's retired. She's retiring this year. And she could literally shot put my son, like if she wanted to.
Yeah.
She can race with him. She can run faster than him at 65 years old. I have one of my best friends has a little boy who's a little bit younger than me. Her mother is 1 year younger than my mother. So my mom is 65. Her mom is 64. Her mom can't get on the floor with her grandson.
Yeah.
Versus my mom, who could literally like jump from a floor position up to the she could jump.
Yeah, like from your knees up to your feet. That's impressive.
So I see her and I see the discrepancy at 60 years old. Peter Attia talks a lot about how it's at 75 that we really fall off that cliff.
Yeah.
But with a lot of my patients, especially my women in their early to mid 60s, I see a major turning point at that particular moment. Cool. That tends to be the inflection point. And so when I think about the experience that my mom is having with my son versus the experience my best friend's mom's having with her grandson, they are very different experiences. And I don't know about you, Tara, but I'm looking to have my mom's path. Like I want to be able to do the things that my mom does and not have to negotiate with if I could do it or not. I want to be able to play tennis competitively like my mom does 3 days a week.
Yeah. Running marathons, shot putting your, wow. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So there's definitely women that listen to this podcast and they're like, wow, that sounds awesome. I want to be like your mom too, but like I'm already 65. It's probably too late for me.
It's never too late.
What would you say to them?
It's never, ever too late. And I think we see that evidence out there in the world.
We need to see it more though.
Yeah, you're seeing it. We need to see it more and more. My mom, when she's training, there's a blue zone in Southern California, Loma Linda.
Yeah.
My mom trains with the Loma Linda Lopers.
Nice.
That's who she trains with. And majority of the people that she runs with when she's training for her half marathons and her marathons, these are people in their 80s.
Yeah.
And so she's deeply inspired by...
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I don't know how. What? Sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay.
It's okay.
Let's go back. Okay. So yes, your mom's in Loma Linda. Loma Linda Club.
She's in the Loma Linda Lopers Club, and a lot of the people that she trains with are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yeah.
And I mean, they have PRs. They have personal records all the time.
Yeah.
They're winning marathons in their age group. And so my mom is deeply inspired by then. And I think, joining a community, joining a group, a big part of the book talks about how mission critical community is.
Yes.
And I want us to reframe the way that we think about community. Instead of going and getting mocktails or cocktails with your girls or sitting down at dinner with your bestie, like plan a hike, go for a walk. That's what my mom does. All of my mom's activities with her best friends are movement.
Yeah.
That is what she's doing with her friends. She is hiking with her friends. She is running with her friends. She's walking with her friends. She's playing tennis with her friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of my mother's activities are with her friends are based around movement. And I think that's where we need to move the direction. So if you are 65 years old and you're thinking like, I don't even know where to start, there's so many places to start. Maybe it's walking a 5K with other people, in their 50s and 60s, or maybe it is, going to like joining a hiking group, like, and seeing what is possible.
Yeah.
The one thing my mom and I see so often within these communities, especially these movement communities, is that there's always people that are older that are like leading the path, leading the way. So I think building community, but also building community in whether it's the sport or the activity that you want to do, you're going to find and you're going to feel very deeply inspired by the fact that there's always going to be people older than you that are kicking your butt in that activity.
It's so incredible, really. Like once you actually put yourself out there, you see like how many amazing athletes there are at all ages, really. Mm-hmm. But you have to put yourself out there and like get a little uncomfortable, show up, so that you can see what's really out there. And I love what you said about movement based. Like it's way easier to just be like, let's go for drinks or let's go for dinner. But it's like you get so much more out of it for both of you in the relationship when you're actually moving your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And even if you, like, let's say your bestie is across the country and you're not able, but you guys have these talking like you have these like you have, maybe it's a Zoom date or it's a call, do it outside.
Yeah. I always do
it outside. Do that. Like have a walking. There was, I'm a big audiobook girly.
Yeah.
Cause I'm a mom in perimenopause. Like I got to get in where I fit in. And I recently saw that there is audiobook walking groups. And I was like, sign me up.
Cool.
Like, I want to, because I listen to audiobooks walking all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I could do that with a group of people.
Yeah.
Like, and so this is starting mostly in the East Coast, like Washington, D.C. There's a huge audiobook walking group. And sometimes people are talking together. Sometimes they're just listening to their audiobooks. Like, do what you want to do. But I love this idea.
Yeah.
So whether it's a date with your bestie or it's an audiobook that you're listening to, or it is, it's like getting together with your girls in real life, like build it around movement.
Yeah. Okay. So what about the women out there that are just scared to lift weights because of the bulky word that it could get?
Oh my gosh.
Especially older women, because I still get that. A lot of my, prospective clients can come in and they just like, I just don't want to lift that heavy because I'm just too scared of that. So what would you tell them?
I would tell them that even do you know how many men want to get bulky, like actually want, how hard it is?
Yeah.
I would say that, when I think about the ultimate gains, it is, lifting to the point where you see body composition changes.
Yeah.
Like it takes so long and it takes so much work to actually bulk up. Like that has got to be a part of your like 9-month protocol to get there. So I would tell them if they're worried about lifting weights out the gate, start with body weight exercises, like a body weight routine. In the book, the beginner workout, I thought about a lot of my patients and just getting started, it was body weight. I was like, I can meet them there and then we can level up with weights. And so that would be my first thing is body weights. And then, dumbbells. Start with dumbbells. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why there's dumbbells everywhere in my house. My house, I don't know if you grew up with Cabbage Patch Kids, but like it's like it's like there's just dumbbells everywhere all over my house. It looks like a Cabbage Patch, like I birthed a bunch of dumbbells all over my house.
That's funny.
So I would say, I know Dr. Von der Wright talks about not lifting with mamby-pamby weights, but like start with this is what I tell women. If you've been lifting those 5 pounds or those 8-pound weights for years, and those are the ones you keep picking up every single time, it's time to level up to the 10s and 12s.
Yeah.
So I would just say keep progressively moving up.
Yeah.
That would be my recommendation. You get to a point where it's going to take a lot more effort to level up the next weight, But yeah, I mean, it's time to upgrade the weights.
Why?
Because it's helping to not only build power and strength, but it's helping to ensure that you've got the freedom and vitality, again, to live the life that you want without having to negotiate with yourself, to avoid osteoporosis, to avoid sarcopenia, and to avoid frailty.
Yeah.
1 in 2 women will have an osteoporotic fracture.
Mm-hmm.
That is the inevitability right now of the trajectory of our lives. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
It's so preventable.
Now, I'm a huge proponent. I'm asking you these questions because these are all from what I hear from people. But I'm asking you this question because a lot of women go to a bar or they go to Pilates and think that that is enough. And they kind of hit this wall where they only pick up the 5s and 8s. Why is it so necessary for them to keep progressing their weights and getting stronger?
I would say it's mainly because they need to get stronger. We need to be stronger. We need to protect our bone. We need to protect our muscle. You're not going to build muscle in Pilates.
Yeah.
You're not going to build muscle through yoga. You've got to be working towards progressive overload over time. Yeah. That's what builds muscle. That's what builds strength and resilience. That's what helps to ensure that you've got good cardiometabolic health.
Thanks for saying that. I've said it on every podcast, but it's really nice to hear it from Doctor right here. You heard it here first. You mentioned HIIT. Let's talk a little bit about that because obviously, you maybe used to work out twice a day, and hopefully you don't do that as much anymore.
I don't do it anymore. No, I do not. I do a lot of mini HIIT.
Yes, but we know how important that could be,
Yes.
Sprint intervals or HIIT kind of training into midlife. So can you kind of share what that could look like?
Absolutely. So I talked about kind of what I would say the easiest way to integrate a little bit of HIIT, which is the exercise snacks. And particularly, a lot of women are frustrated with the body composition changes.
Right.
The average perimenopausal woman will put on 5 pounds of fat. 20% of us in perimenopause will put on 10 pounds or more. Mm-hmm. And this, yes, it's hormones. And there's a lot of other things at play as well. But we become more insulin resistant, unfortunately, as we start to lose estrogen and progesterone. But then, we're not sleeping well and life is lifing on us and we're not moving in a meaningful way. All of a sudden, we're just putting on this weight. Mm-hmm. And so one of the ways that I love to help women kind of address the belly fat, address the body composition changes is with either sprint training or HIIT training. And if you burn out on high intensity interval training, that's where the exercise snacks come in and they can be really helpful. Mm-hmm. But I would say, where we will see kind of not only boosting VO2 max, boosting good, having good respiratory capacity, really protecting our cardiometabolic health and burning fat is going to be with sprint training. And sprint training is basically all out, whether it's running or it is, anything all out. It's cycling, it's swimming for, whether it's 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I usually do all out sprints, 30-second sprints, and then take a break and do another 30-second sprint. But that's going to be one of the best ways to build power, mitigate, belly fat, and to build on top of your longevity. Okay. So, and it can be easy. I do have a Carol bike, so that's a whole different device where I'm doing, and I think they call that re-HIIT. It's a different type of HIIT training, but I do it for 5 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week. Okay. And that specifically is a type of sprint training.
I've never heard of the Carol bike. You've mentioned that a couple times.
Yeah, it's a sprint bike.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it's specifically, it does 20-second all-out sprints in a 5-minute workout. And the whole purpose of the Carol bike specifically, I'm not trying to advertise it, but it's improving your VO2 max over time.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, we've got to hit nutrition because I know you had mentioned that earlier. Yeah. So what's so important for nutrition in midlife?
I believe that nutrition is the building blocks of everything.
Okay.
You know, I will say if I had to bottle anything, it would be movement. Like if I could bottle it up and give it to you, I would bottle movement.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's so many ancillary benefits. But at the end of the day, you know, the decision that we make the most is what we put in our bodies. And I want women to be thinking about it from the standpoint of how am I fueling my future brain? That's how I want you to be thinking about it, because I think that women really feel the lack of brain injury, the lack of brain energy, like the low mental energy. They notice the mood swings. They notice the I would say, hold on, give me a second.
You're good.
They notice the what's happening to me right now, which is the lack of word recall. And you feel that. You can feel like you're like, why am I not as sharp as I used to be? And so I want everyone to be thinking about, is what I'm about to eat going to fuel my future brain? And that includes alcohol.
Yeah.
Like I want us to be thinking about all the substrates that we're putting into our body. And so in the book, I talk about building a metabolically healthy plate. And there are a number of principles that go with that. The first one is going to be antioxidant and micronutrient rich foods. These are plant foods, right? And ideally, we have a diverse array of those. The goal in the book, the gold standard, is about 30 different plant foods every week. And again, just like jump squats, that can feel like a little bit of a lot. Yeah. So take a look and see, just do an inventory. How many different plant foods am I eating every single week? Vegetables, fruits, seeds, legumes, nuts. Take a look. And from there, let's say on average, it's like 11 or 12. See how you can improve that by 3 to 4 every single week until you're in the 20s or close to 30. And the purpose of that is really having good microbiome diversity, reducing inflammation, and just really helping to create more diversity across the board. So that's going to be micronutrient, antioxidant rich foods. Next is going to be probiotic rich foods as well. Again, specifically supporting that microbiome. Omegas, so supporting the brain, reducing inflammation, ensuring that you're getting enough protein, sufficient amount of protein for every meal as well. And then also the last tenet of this is going to be just really modifying the amount of refined sugar, refined grains, like seeing how you can crowd out some of those refined foods with these real foods. The book offers a ton of recipes, a meal plan, but more so, those are examples of what I would love. I want to show you how to build these plates, how to build these meals for you and your family so that you don't necessarily need a meal plan or recipes. You just, these are the foods that you have from the grocery store or from the farmer's market. This is how you're putting together these meals for you and your family, so that you are protecting your future health and your future brain.
Okay. So a lot of those recipes are in the book, but
Yes.
can you just share a little bit more about how you're getting your protein sources in? And you had talked about omega-3s. Like, where are we getting some of this from?
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of animal-based protein. I think that that's like a really great quality protein. So whether it's fish or it's lean meats or it's chicken, like getting where you fit in, ideally, as a clean of a protein source as possible. A lot of my ladies they have dairy allergies, but if you don't, obviously good cheese sources, whey protein can be great, Greek yogurt, and then plants can supplement. I think plants are more of a supplemental protein than they are, really getting that complete quality protein.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then omega-3s.
And omega-3s, flaxseed, walnuts, eggs, and also fish. Obviously, like things like we eat a lot of salmon in our house.
Yeah, definitely always make sure we have fish in the house. Yeah. Okay, amazing. So if we're looking at our plates and we're looking at like what we're doing for the week, you said 30 vegetables. In my head, I'm getting the same cucumber, tomatoes, carrots, romaine lettuce every week. I'm like, how can I add more vegetables in? What other ways could we do this? Could it be a seasonal or farmer's market?
Yeah, I was going to say seasonal. So one of the things that I loved, when I started going to a farmer's market about 20 years ago, was seeing the seasonal produce come in and out, right? And watching when the cherries were gone. I was like, oh, cherries really in the farmer's market world only last about a month. Yeah. And watching when the blueberries came in or when the Swiss chard came or the acorn squash, the pomegranates, the persimmons. And so if you're able to get to a farmer's market or kind of a co-op where they are rotating more seasonal ingredients, you realize like, whoa, like actually there's a lot of diversity here that I can pull from.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about a lot of different things, lifestyle, step, talked a little bit about stress and how, getting your steps and getting outside could help with that. Lots of movement stuff. Here's nutrition. What if I'm doing all the right things and I'm still in perimenopause and I just have the worst symptoms ever? Like, what do I do now?
Yeah, that's when you go advocate for yourself. That's when you go to your doctor and say, I don't feel like myself. I'm pretty sure this is perimenopause. Can we have a conversation about what's available? Particularly, can we have a conversation about hormone replacement therapy? Yes.
And so if we're going to get our hormones checked and there is some discrepancy there, is that when you go in and figure out what could be a replacement therapy that's best for you? And what does that look like as far as like a cocktail goes for you?
Oh, that's a good question. And it gets very, I want to preface this with saying that the one thing about perimenopause is that it is a moving target in the sense that who you are at 41 or 42 is going to be different at 44, 46, 49, 51.
Right.
And so hormones are going to be shifting and changing. Ultimately, they're erratically declining. That's what's going on in perimenopause until we get to menopause, where now hormones are very, very low and definitely more stable and low at that point.
Yeah.
But my argument in the book is that we really should maintain and optimize hormones throughout perimenopause and beyond. Yeah. Lifestyle medicine is always going to be the foundation, mainly because you want to be a good, healthy host for hormones. But HRT is a game changer for protecting bone and muscle, for protecting your brain, for protecting your vaginal health. General urinary symptoms of menopause are going to happen to over 90% of women. Yeah. Women are going to experience UTIs, vaginal dryness, painful intercourse, vaginal atrophy, in perimenopause and menopause. And so having these tools along with lifestyle medicine, I find is the ultimate playbook for women as they navigate midlife and beyond. A lot of doctors are not even going to run labs. They're going to look at your symptoms.
Right.
And for a lot of women in early perimenopause, those symptoms are going to be brain related or kind of stress related due to a decline in progesterone. So usually a lot of doctors will start with oral micronized progesterone first. They'll stack that first and see how women do. Often in perimenopause, it's cycled. For me, I still cycle progesterone. I'm on all the hormones. So I cycle progesterone right after ovulation for 14 days, and then 14 days I'm not taking progesterone. But if you're doing all the things and you're on progesterone and you still feel like a hot mess, like you're still struggling with brain-related issues, low mental energy, just cognitive changes, maybe sleep is off, you're working with your doctor to kind of figure out when is the appropriate time to bring on estrogen. And usually that's in if you're working with kind of a more conventional doctor, that's going to be a patch, a lower dose patch to kind of mitigate symptoms. If you're working with more of a functional doctor, it can be a patch or it can be a cream. There's kind of more options depending. Okay. But ultimately, not only are we looking to see if we're mitigating symptoms and we're helping you feel better, but ideally, a functional-based doctor is also probably looking at labs as well. So it's a yes and. Okay. When it comes to testosterone, particularly, and I know that there's more and more conversation about testosterone, we really do need to be looking at labs. Testosterone is just a little bit of a different player. It is a reproductive hormone. It's the most abundantly active hormone in a woman's body, more than estrogen and progesterone. But we really got to Goldilocks testosterone. And we also need to know, are we not making enough testosterone, or are we binding it up with sex hormone? Sex hormone binding globulin protein. So we need to know. So that there's some nuance when it comes to looking at testosterone. I will say that if a woman's testosterone is low across the board and we bring it on, it is very much a light bulb moment in terms of having power and mental stamina, confidence, motivation. So, it really just depends on the person. But usually when I'm talking about HRT with a patient, I'm usually stacking it. So I'm starting with one and then stacking another and then stacking another. So I'm not usually hitting all the hormones at once.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you put it that way too, because that just comes with lifestyle and movement, right? We're not just going to throw somebody who's done 3,000 steps a day to 10K steps 4 times a week.
Or into CrossFit or something.
Yeah, we have to take everything very in a slow, sustainable approach, because also from what I understand about HRT and your hormones is that they really change all the time. So
Yes.
your cocktail, I hear it called a cocktail. I hope that's okay with
Yeah,
you.
yeah, it's totally appropriate.
Yeah,
your
because it really
stack.
changes all the time,
Yeah,
right?
it totally does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what you need, again, what you need in your early 40s is going to be different than what you need in your mid 40s or your late 40s.
Yeah.
So it's really going to be about, in a lot of ways, and I know women don't love to hear it as well. And that's talking about, being the CEO of your health out the gate from in this conversation is that you're going to kind of be playing with your hormone protocol a little bit.
Yeah.
With your doctor. You're going to be your own N of one.
Yeah.
Even in my own perimenopause journey, my own hormone replacement therapy journey, my dosage and application has shifted multiple times.
Okay. Yeah.
So
And does that also change when you're actually postmenopausal?
it's more, for a lot of women, it's more stable.
Okay.
At that point, hormones are at a low hormone state. They're not going to be wildly fluctuating like perimenopause. I mean, if you look at a graph of hormones in perimenopause, it looks like chaos.
Yeah.
And it feels very much like that.
Yeah.
And so that's why it can be so hard to kind of dial it without really working with somebody, right? But in menopause, I don't want to call it a flat line, but it's more a low hormone state is what you're in. And so it's a lot more stable. Again, it is about not only about mitigating symptoms, but it's about long-term health outcomes.
Yeah.
And so anytime you're working as a patient, if you're working with your doctor, you want to make sure that they're also under that mindset of we're mitigating symptoms and we're protecting your long-term health. Mm-hmm. Some doctors are just about mitigating symptoms, and you deserve better than that. You deserve more than that.
How do you know how to find that person that wants to give you more than that?
I would say, I think a compounding pharmacist is the first place. Because I was going to say initially, call that doctor's office if they're specifically advertising like hormone optimization, longevity medicine. Find out what that really means. Are they tailoring protocols? Are they working with you?
Yeah.
Are they looking at long-term health outcomes? But then my other thing is, if that feels a little too complicated, well before you even make that step to call that practice, call your nearest compounding pharmacist and ask who is getting really dialed with hormone replacement therapy, who's compounding hormones, who's making really, you can tell that they're very on top of protocols for their patients and they're pivoting with their patients. So ask that compounding pharmacist who would be that doctor.
Cool. I love that. Okay. Where can women start? What's the first thing that they can do? If they know they're feeling some of these symptoms, what would you suggest they do? Is it finding someone like that?
No, I would say number one, track your symptoms along with your menstrual cycle. So, and know your numbers and know your normals. So know your normal sleep patterns, your energy, your mood. So have some information and data on you. And then, have data about your menstrual cycle, have data about your symptoms. So have that information that you've been tracking, I would say for 3 months.
Okay.
Just to kind of get a good sense of what's going on with you.
Yeah.
Ideally, if you can afford it, whether it's a Fitbit or it's a Garmin watch, maybe it's a Whoop or an Oura Ring, collect some of that data as well.
Yeah.
We're moving into a time of bioobservability where we really get to look at our own data in a meaningful way and make real-time changes based on that data. And then, once you really have some good information about yourself, obviously the book goes deeper into this as well. I would take that to your doctor or to a doctor you're looking for who takes care of women in menopause and perimenopause. And I always say that the person who's got the list, the person who's got the piece of paper, they're running the meeting, that doctor's meeting. So have your top 3 symptoms on paper. Connect those symptoms to how it's impacting your life so that you can really advocate for needing to address those.
Yeah.
Have the biomarkers, the labs that you want ran, and whatever else that you feel needs to move the conversation forward for you. This is how you're going to be able to advocate and get somebody who's working for you on your side. And, I was interviewing Dr. Mariza the other day, and we were talking about not only advocating for ourselves, but just remembering that the doctor works for you. We work for you.
Yeah.
You're the patient, and so as you're navigating these conversations, just remember that. At the end of the day, it's about your health.
Yeah.
It's about your future health outcomes. And I always say you don't deserve a half solution. You deserve the entire comprehensive protocol. You deserve the best of everything, not the least of everything. And so often we as women, we settle for the least of things or the leftovers.
Yeah.
And if you want to thrive in menopause and beyond, we really need the best of it. We need the gold standard of care. And that starts with you understanding your normals, that's understanding your symptoms, and then going and really advocating for getting back to a place of feeling more alive in your body. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
I love it. Where can people find you? Where can they find your book? Tell us just all about where to find Dr. Mariza.
Yeah, the book is everywhere books are sold. You can get it on, obviously, Amazon. Like I said, it's on Audible as well. I read the book. The book bonuses that go with the book is drmariza.com/book. Also, Dr. Mariza is where you'll find everything, including the podcast, Energized with Dr. Mariza, which is really focused on midlife and how women can feel more energized in that transition in their life. And on Insta, at Dr. Mariza, so DrMariza. I try to bring a lot of levity to perimenopause on Instagram, but also really provide you with actionable steps that will help you feel like a different person within about 2 weeks or so.
Wow, 2 weeks time. I love
Yes.
to hear it. Thank you so much for being here. This was such a wonderful conversation. I
Thanks for
appreciate
having me.
you.